let's get started. So, hello, I'm Shigeki Yamaguchi, CEO of NTT Data Institute of Management Consulting and Kunie, and also Executive Advisor of NTT Data Corporation. At NTT Data, we are dedicated to researching the best practices of advanced digital transformation from around the world in order to gain insights and perspectives. This is because our mission is to support our client success in digital transformation by enhancing our knowledge and capabilities. I have published 3 books in Japan. In 2019, I released Economy of Wisdom, which explores how digital technologies are transforming the economy. In 2020, I wrote Trust and Digital, which delves into how to leverage digital technology in management. Furthermore, in 2021, I published my 3rd book titled Digital Transformation and the Learning Organization, which discusses how to cultivate organization and talents for successful digital transformation. In light of all this, I came across a fascinating and compelling book titled The Digital Transformation Roadmap, published recently in August 2023. What set this book apart from many other digital-related publications is its focus. Instead of discussing which digital strategy to adopt, it addresses how to evaluate digital transformation, even in the case of ongoing digital transformation. He describes how to make adjustments to proper way. It's often said that 70% of digital transformations fail. I believe there are many managers and digital transformation stakeholders pondering, how can we avoid failing in our digital transformation? Yes, it's rare to find a book that answers this question as clearly as this one does. Today, I'm thrilled to engage in a discussion with the author of this book, Professor David L. Rogers. He holds a professorship at the Columbia Business School and is one of the world's foremost experts in digital transformation, having made appearances in major media outlets across the globe. Roger-san, thank you for taking the time. It's an honor to meet with you again. I was greatly inspired by our discussion in New York in August. Building our basic session in New York today, I'd like to delve deeper into an advanced session regarding your book. Please, Roger-san.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yamaguchi-san. It has been a great pleasure to get to meet you and learn of your own books as a fellow author and your work on digital transformation with many, many companies in Japan. It was a pleasure to meet in person in New York City recently and to share my perspectives with you and learn from your experience. And I'm very happy today that we can have this dialogue to discuss some of these important issues that are facing really every company today as they look to adapt and transform so that they can truly continue to grow and thrive in the digital era.
Thank you. Your previous book, The Digital Transformation Playbook, Rethink Your Business for the Digital Age, which has been translated into more than 10 languages and has achieved global sales, discussed how to formulate digital strategies and the mindset behind them. Your new book, The Digital Transformation Roadmap, is about how to proceed when implementing digital strategies and how to grow them as a business. Before delving into the main topic, I'd like to ask about the background behind the publication of this book. Firstly, I imagine you received various feedback from companies regarding your previous book. How has this feedback been incorporated into your current digital transformation roadmap? Secondly, given the changes in the era, especially with events like COVID-19 and international situations, and technology advancement, how have you influenced your framework of digital transformation in digital transformation roadmap compared to digital transformation playbook? Please.
Thank you. Those are both very good questions. I think where I see the environment has evolved since I wrote my last book, which was published in English 7 years ago. And of course, I started writing it even before then, so 10 years ago, say. A couple major changes. One is that the need for digital transformation is now understood by every business. When I started working on this topic and writing what was the first book on digital transformation, there were some industries and some companies who saw and understood why they needed to change significantly. But other companies would tell me, oh, someone else has to transform. We are doing well. We don't need to change that much. Today, I see every organization recognizes that. And COVID was one of the factors, certainly. It impacted every company, whether it was how you delivered products and services to your customers. For example, if you used to do that through a retail channel, we all had to learn digital delivery. But even if you were already a software company, for example, your operating model had to change. How did your people work? How did you operate your organization? And so every company now recognizes the need that this is going to change. Digital technologies are going to change everything about their business. And the other thing I think we start to recognize now is that this is not one big change that happened, right? I used to hear from companies, they would say, CEOs would ask me, Professor Rogers, I have read your book. I want to do a digital transformation. Can you tell me, will this take 2 years or 3 years to complete? And what is the budget? And I would say you are asking the wrong question. Right? There is not an end date. You will not complete this process. Digital transformation is an ongoing journey. And that's because the digital revolution is not finished. It is not that the internet arose and maybe, e-commerce and okay, a few big changes and now the companies will adapt and we are ready for the new environment and things are more stable and steady. No, we keep having new changes and more changes with 5G and machine learning and now generative AI and of course, cloud computing earlier, and there'll be a next big change coming after this. And so it is not responding to one big change, but becoming an organization that can adapt to continuing waves of change. I guess the one other thing to your first question, in terms of my feedback, what really led me to write this book in particular was that my last book really focused on how do you reimagine your strategy, rethink your business for the digital age, and how do we move past some of the old strategy tools that we've taught for years in business schools like my own, Columbia, but maybe are from an earlier era, and how do we think about strategy differently in the digital era? But what I learned since then is that even the companies who are able to do that, to change their mindset, their thinking, and develop new strategies and identify new digital business models, for example, new digital products and services, that the established businesses find it very hard to make the change happen, right? They kept coming back to me and saying, it's going too slow. I don't know why. I'm the CEO, and I said we're going to make this digital product or service, and we're changing the company, and yet everyone is moving slowly in my organization. What is holding us back? And so that really led me to my own work advising companies and a lot of research to try to understand what are the biggest barriers to a successful digital transformation, right? You mentioned that 70% fail.
Yeah.
So why do 70% fail? And why do 30% succeed?
Yeah.
Right? And that was really the learning that went into this book to show the roadmap, the steps of how companies can do this successfully. And it really has to do with changing your organization itself.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Roger-san. As mentioned in your book, it is said 70% of digital transformation fail. In this situation, I'd like to understand specifically how one can succeed in digital transformation. I'm keen to explore this essence along 5 steps as you have outlined. To gain a deeper understanding of the content of your book, I would like to proceed with our discussion by comparing each step with our own framework. For step 1, vision, step 2, priorities, and step 3, experimentation. I would like to start by having you explain the essence from your book. And then we can base our discussion on that. For step 4, governance, and step 5, capabilities, I would like to begin by introducing our framework and thinking related to the content of your book. Then we can use that as a foundation for our discussion. Let's get into the main topic then. I would like to start with step 1, vision. For this part, I would appreciate you could begin by explaining the essence and the key points of this step from your book. And then we can base our discussion on that. Please.
Thanks very much. So the first step of the roadmap is that any business that is attempting a transformation needs to define a shared vision, which everyone in the organization understands. It is a vision of where your world is going, the context of your company, your customers, your competitors, your business environment, and a clear vision of where you expect to be, what role you hope to play in that future, and why your organization is the best and only one that can or should play that role, right? This is incredibly important because we need to have this alignment of all parts of the organization in order to move quickly and drive real change. Everyone has to understand before we even talk about what we are going to do, what we are going to change, we have to all understand why we are going to change. Right? This step is all about the why. Why do we have to change? Right? And there are really 4 elements that I have found are essential to that shared vision, if it is really going to motivate, right? This is very important to bring everyone in the organization, your stakeholders together, and to help them be excited and motivated to ready to make change happen. So the first piece that you need is what I call a future landscape. And this is a classic forward-looking strategy assessment where you describe what is happening in your industry and your competitors and your customers and changing technologies, new customer expectations, all these different drivers that are shaping the world around you, right? So you have to have a shared understanding that the world is changing, but more specifically, how is it changing for you and for your business? Right? The second piece you need to have is what I call a right to win, right? And this is an explanation of what is unique about your business, right? What capabilities, what advantages do you have that make you better able to do some things, better able to do them than any others, right? And that will be essential to understanding why you have a particular role to play in this future that you are seeing. And then the last two parts are really about the motivation, right? Why do we need to make this change happen? And the first is what I call a North Star impact, right? And this provides a statement of what will we achieve, what will the outcome be, really what value will we create if we can transform the organization and adapt and become a more digital business. What can we then do that we could not do today, right? What value can we create for our clients, our customers, the world? That is a very motivating force for the employees in your company, right? Psychologists refer to this as intrinsic motivation, a belief in the value of the work that you are doing. Sometimes it's called the purpose, right? And then the fourth piece is also critical, and this is about what psychologists would call extrinsic motivation. This is about things like financial rewards. And so as a business, you need to know if we are going to put resources into this effort, how should it pay for itself, right? Maybe not immediately, it may take some time, but we cannot put lots of resources into an effort that will not allow us to capture any value back as a firm in the future. It has to be financially sustainable. So this piece is called the business theory. It is a theory of how, if we make these investments and grow these capabilities and evolve the business in this way, what will it do that allows us to capture value back? So I'll give a few examples. If we think about the North Star impact, what impact are we hoping to have? So Ford Motor, for example, an American automotive company, is very clearly focused on the impact it is seeking to have with its transformation. And they have decided they need to help to meet the environmental and mobility needs of a growing urbanizing planet with connected vehicles and transport systems, right? So really two basic needs of the world and their customers and their societies, to both provide mobility, right, which is what an automotive company has always been about, but also to meet the environmental needs. We have to have these in balance, right? And the way they're going to do that is with connected vehicles, not traditional vehicles, and connected transport systems. So that is a very powerful vision of the, again, what I call your North Star. That's a guiding vision of the impact you want. In another company, it will be different. MasterCard, right? Traditionally a credit card network. Their North Star impact is that now they look very broadly at financial services in the digital era. They say, we want to power and protect secure commerce in the digital world across every device, partner, and platform. So transactions and exchanges and purchases across so many digital devices. And how do we make sure this is secure and safe and protected and reliable? That is the impact that they seek to have. Maybe a smaller or simpler category, Domino's Pizza, I always like. They are very focused on using digital technologies to improve the experience for ordering and delivery, right? To offer, as they think of it, the ultimate pizza delivery experience for today's digitally connected customers. So those are all examples of a North Star impact. And this is critical for any business. Lastly, speaking to the point of the business theory, really that is the question of how are you going to recapture your digital investments? And this is a question of thinking about the value that you are going to create, right? And some common areas or value you will capture. Common areas might be your customer experience, for example. Will you generate value for the firm because improving new digital products, or maybe a better digital marketing approach or a digital distribution channel. It may bring you more customers. It may help you to retain your customers, right? Or maybe you are going to capture value through operational excellence, right? Using digital technologies to improve your speed, your efficiency, reduce the risk inside the operations of your business, right? Or you may be capturing value through new business models. You may say, yes, part of our digital transformation is to improve our existing business, but we are also going to expand into new business models that will generate revenue for us as well. It's very important to, again, align, agree, discuss, and come to a shared vision of why are we doing this? What value will it create for the world? Why do we uniquely need to do this, our right to win? And how will we earn revenue or value back for the firm? Those are the 4 pieces that you need in a shared vision.
Thank you. Let me introduce you to the relevant framework from NTT data. In the fiscal year of 2022, we developed the foresight design method as a methodology to identify the desired future state for client. The foresight design method is characterized by its consideration not only of future environment changes, but also of a company's strengths currently appreciated by clients, along with the company's purpose, mission, and values. Another distinctive feature is our unique theory, digital by default, which explores how digital technology transforms our business. In your book, you mentioned that when defining a vision for a digital future, 4 points are crucial: future landscape, right to win, North Star impact, and business theory. The future landscape corresponds to step 2A, foresight into the trends of external factors. The right to win matches step 1, assesses as is business, and the North Star impact relates to step 3, review customer value with company's purpose and mission. I felt a particular affinity with these 3 points. Regarding business theory, I understood it as capturing the causal relationship where taking measures lead to generating profit, focusing on value drivers. This perspective is not covered in our foresight design method, and I was deeply impressed by it. We believe it is of great importance for us as well. Now, let's move on to discussing step 2, priorities. Similar to step 1, for step 2, I would appreciate if you would begin by explaining the essence of this step from your book.
So the essence of this step is that once a company starts to lay out this vision of why they need to change and how they are going to transform, what I find is you will very quickly start to develop many ideas for different digital technologies and products and projects and services that you may apply. And the biggest challenge here is to focus, right? To decide what are the most important areas that you want to innovate and change and develop new digital strategies in your company, right? So this is why I refer to this as picking the problems that matter most, right? What problems do you want to solve? And I have seen, and there's a lot of theories of innovation and strategy, which have shown us the power of defining problems to be solved before you go and look for a solution, right? And what I've found is useful is to look both to problems that you will solve and also to opportunities that you may pursue for growth, right? Because the problem is more related to your current business or activities, what could be better. But sometimes an opportunity, looking for that growth opportunity, will allow you to move into a new direction, right? To meet needs that you are not yet addressing. So MasterCard is an example. They do a lot of thinking about what I call a problem opportunity statement. And 3 examples of business problems and opportunities that they are focused on. They are asking, how might we, as MasterCard, solve cybersecurity needs of many, many different businesses using digital identity and authentication, right? How can we use new emerging digital technologies around authentication of who someone is in a virtual space and use that to improve our cybersecurity? A second big opportunity is how might we harness our retail transaction data for analytics and insights, right? Because MasterCard, of course, is one of the biggest credit card networks in the world and has a tremendous amount every single day of commercial transactions that are flowing through its network, right? And so how do they leverage that asset? How can they create new insights from that data? And a third problem opportunity statement they are focused on is how might we provide financial inclusion to unbanked communities, right? In many of the regions and countries that they operate in, there are still significant populations who do not yet have full access to banking and financial services. And so MasterCard is looking at that as a problem to solve and an opportunity for growth. So the point here is looking for really important problems and problems that are closely related to your unique strengths as a business, right? These are all things that MasterCard, because of its data, because of its relationships with merchants and banks and individual consumers around the world, and because of its existing technologies and capabilities, all of these things make MasterCard especially good as a company to try to solve each of these problems, right? And what I find is useful is to really try for any business, and not just at the corporate level. This is a sort of a company-wide level of priorities for MasterCard, but at each level of the business, setting priorities for the whole company, also to be setting priorities for each business unit, also to be setting priorities even for a team within that company. And I have a tool in the book, which is called the Problem Opportunity Matrix. Mm-hmm. And this is a way to help any team or any part of the organization to really think through what are the problems that we might solve. And these should include both customer problems, right? Something the customer is currently having difficulty with, but also business problems. What is it in your business operations that currently is holding you back or limiting your growth or bringing unnecessary cost or slowing you down, right? And what are those problems you could solve? And then also opportunities. What are opportunities to delight customers, to bring them an experience they have never had before and are not expecting? And what are opportunities for the business, maybe to grow in a new direction, to expand the kinds of business that you are in? And if we look in these 4 quadrants, again, at any level of the organization, this could be just the marketing team, it might be your human resources team, it could be a particular business unit, it might be for the whole company. But if we use this matrix, we can start to identify the most important problems and opportunities that we should be really focusing our digital innovation and our digital investments to take advantage of, to solve, and to grow.
Thank you. I would like to introduce you to a related framework from NTT Data. As part of the previous mentioned FDM, we have formulated the outcome-based service template as a methodology for identifying new services that a company should offer to its customers. This method derives from new customer values that address genuine customer issues from both a top-down and bottom-up approach. The first foresees value of customers in the scope of a company, whereas the second unveils real-world challenges from existing customer experiences. Without a guiding North Star, considering various services can lead to strategies that misshift. In this sense, the North Star impact discussed in your book felt close to our concept of value. I wholeheartedly agree with the emphasis placed on the importance of the North Star impact. Also, this book describes that 4 points are very critical when we define opportunities. These 4 points are customer experience, right to win market, clear capability, adaptable to business, and goal at scale. We especially resonate on the correlation that the customer experience breeds business opportunities. Now, let's move on to discussing step 3, experimentation. This step outlines how to evaluate ongoing digital transformations and where agile adjustment is essential to prevent failure. I believe this content sets your book apart from others on digital transformation. It's an incredibly insightful step. Can you begin by explaining the essence of this step from your book?
Thank you. Yes, experimentation is absolutely critical to digital transformation. And the reason why is because in the digital era, as we are trying to adopt new operating models, to develop new customer experiences, to create new digital products and services, there is always tremendous uncertainty, right? The world is changing. We are using technologies that have never been used before. We're creating new kinds of experiences. And the problem I see in many, many established businesses is they try to do these very new things and take a very planning-based approach, because that is what they are used to doing with their core business that they have been running for many, many, many years, right? And if you know the environment and the problem and the product and the service and the solution and the customer, and you have decades of data, that may work well, right, to plan what is next quarter based on last quarter. But as you are trying out new digital models, you will have too much uncertainty. And so companies will do one of two things. They have too much self-confidence, and they say, oh, we know what the product digital business model should be. We're going to plan the whole thing out, and then we'll just launch it with a whole lot of resources. And you have these very costly failures of a new digital product or service by established businesses, right? Or they take the opposite approach. They actually recognize, oh, this is very uncertain. We don't actually know what the market wants. We don't know if the technology will work. We don't know what the right distribution channel is. This could easily not succeed. And so they don't do it, right? And they say, let's just wait for someone else to innovate and maybe we can follow on. Neither of these approaches will succeed. For true success, you have to be able to innovate under uncertainty. And that is why we need a process of experimentation. And we've had a lot of theories in the last 20 years helping us to understand why experimentation is critical to innovation. But what we have not had is the models for how to take those ideas out of a small startup, right? Out of the world of a small group of entrepreneurs, and how do we bring it into a large organization? How do we make this kind of rapid testing and learning that startups do and make it a repeatable process? So in the roadmap, this is what I really try to explore and to present a process that any company can use for any kind of innovation, right? And it involves these 4 overlapping stages. So any new innovation has to be validated. You have to test all of your assumptions, all of your, I call them hypotheses about this new business or service or whatever it is that you're building. And there are different questions you must answer. So in the first stage of problem validation, the question you have to answer, and this has to be the first, are we focusing on a genuine problem for an actual customer? And I find that most innovations fail because they don't ask that question. They take it for granted, and they set out and they do a lot of work, and they either don't know what problem they are solving with this great new technology or product, or if they tell you what the problem is, you cannot find a customer who truly has that problem or cares about it, right? So you're building something people don't really need. So that's the first thing you have to test and validate. The second stage is what I call solution validation. Now, once you know what the problem is, and it's probably a little bit different than what you thought originally, but you've talked to customers, now you understand the real problem, you will start to think about possible solutions. Before you build anything that works, any working product, you need to start getting customer feedback on this question. Does the customer see value in your proposed solution? Right. So here's where you want to be using simple things like wireframes and diagrams and fake products that don't work but show you how it would work, and videos that show in the life of a person, how is this going to fit in? That's all you need, something like that. And then the customer will ask questions, and you'll start to see what works, what they like, what they don't like, what are they really interested in. That's essential. Then you come to the third stage, what I call product validation. The question here, now we get to the world of actually delivering a working solution, right? And now you want to find out, can we deliver a solution that customers use, right? Many times I see a business achieves what is called product market fit. They come up with an idea for a product and the customer wants it. The customer says, yes, sign me up, put me on your list. Even here's a deposit. I would like to try your service, or I'm creating an account. And yet, what can go wrong? Well, sometimes it turns out you can't deliver the product, right? Maybe the technology doesn't work the way you thought, right? Maybe you cannot get approval from regulators, right? You're in a healthcare or financial services, a regulated industry. Sometimes you can deliver the solution, but it turns out, although the customer told you they want it, once you give it to them and they use it once or twice, they stop using it. They don't continue to use it. You'll never really learn about how well is this solving the customer's problem until you get to this stage, right? And then there's one more essential stage. And the fourth stage is what I call business validation. And this is where you have to test and learn, can we, the company, capture sufficient value from this innovation, right? Are we going to charge the customer to use it? Okay, if so, how much will they pay, right? What is it worth? Who will pay, right? Which customers will pay more or less for it? If we're not charging the customers, what else is our revenue model? Is it sponsored by someone else? Is there advertising? Maybe it is a cost-saving innovation, right? But you have to measure and prove these things. Again, you can say, oh, this will save us a lot of money with our human resources. Of course, we should spend all the money to build the solution. Well, does it? Right? Does it actually save you money, or does all that effort go somewhere else? So you have to test and learn, what are the economics of this? What is the profit point? At what scale? What's the total size of the market? How much value will you capture if you take this all the way to fruition? And the important thing is, if you approach this all through a process of experimentation, you can start to learn all of these things very quickly and very cheaply. Right? I see companies spend 2 years planning a new product and then lots of money, and it fails. And instead, I say, give me 6 months with a small team and a little bit of money, and we can probably answer all 4 questions. Right? And only then, if they are all positive, should we start to really invest a lot of resources. And the last point here is that these 4 stages are overlapping. Right? You don't do one and then you're done. Once you start with problem validation and you learn about the customer's problem and you have some real insight there, now you can start looking at ideas for solutions, right? But you keep learning about the customer and their problem. And then you have ideas about what features they want in the solution and what format it should come. Once you have a lot of learning there, okay, now we start to build our very first rough working product. And then we start to see how they use it. And that will change what the next feature should be. That's going to inform the solution validation. You keep learning about what they want next from the solution, and then you keep measuring how do they actually use it? How do you actually deliver it? And then as you start to measure the business validation, well, what's the pricing? Well, should we give a discount if you order more? Or maybe we should have a usage fee rather than a purchase price. As you are changing and evolving the product, the business validation will change too. So all of these sort of layer onto each other until you are simultaneously testing and learning about all 4 questions.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining the 4 stages. As I introduced earlier, within our outcome-based service template, we also have a process for refining customer journey when planning new services. This involves the following process. We believe it's important to engage in discussion with customers based on a specific service hypothesis and repeatedly validate the hypothesis. This not only allows us to plan feasible services, but also to focus on the details of specific jobs and incorporate customer feedback. In your book, the emphasis on iterative hypothesis validation and prioritizing customer feedback during this validation resonates with our framework. Furthermore, the way you have broken down the validation into 4 stages was an enlightening perspective not present in our foresight design method. I believe the 4 stages of validation in step 3 are particularly important in your book. To convey the key points more clearly to Japanese readers, I would like to ask the following. Number 1 question. It seems to me that many companies neglect finding customer problems and focus more on making good products. How do you see this, Roger-san?
I think it is very common. Yes, I think many companies rush to start building the product without asking what problem are they building it to solve. This is one of the most common mistakes I see in organizations, and that is why I've designed the 4 stages in the order that I have, because you really have to validate first the problem you are solving. And the companies that I see are really succeeding and are very good at developing innovations that really impact the lives of the customers and impact their own business. These are companies who always do start with the problem first. They first define what problem are we solving, and then everything else has to follow from that.
Yeah. Thank you. As you mentioned, finding customer problems is the starting point of digital transformation. If we define wrong customer problems, it would definitely lead to failure of digital transformation. What should we grasp right customer problems?
The only way you'll really understand what the customer's problem is to talk to them. And so when we talk about problem validation, this is really about spending time really close with the customer in the context. If it is a consumer, spending time observing them and talking to them in their lives at home or with friends. If it is an enterprise or business customer, spending time following them around at their factory plant or in their sales calls or at their job and understanding what is going on there. And asking them about what is difficult, what could be better, why do they do things a certain way, what do they wish was different. you have to get it in the words of the customers themselves. They are the only ones who can tell you, you know, a good customer problem is a problem that the customer tells you they have, and you want to look for emotion. When they start talking about it, they get agitated, right? They get, maybe they're upset or they're excited about it. Then you know it really matters to them. My friend Bob Dorff, great author and entrepreneur, told me years ago, he said, everyone has lots of problems, but if you want to build a business, you have to solve one of someone's top 5 problems, right? If you are solving problem 8 or 12 on my list of problems, I will never care enough about your solution to spend enough money and tell all my friends about it. I might use it a little bit, but you're not going to build a strong business. But if you're in my top 5, if this is a problem that really, truly matters to me, then you really have a chance to build something of value, a real innovation. You don't yet know what it will look like, how it will work, but now you're in a position to really build a business. This was an example I just put in. I wasn't sure if you wanted an example of a story of a company using iterative experimentation to validate, you know, a specific problem and actually coming up with different solutions to the same problem. I could talk through it, but maybe we should wait and see if we have time at the end.
Now, shall we move on to discussing step 4, governance? For step 4, in contrast to step 1 to 3, I would like to begin by introducing our thinking and framework related to the content of your book, and will be delightful to incorporate your thought to help us improve in this encountering. To start, let me introduce NTT Data's perspective related to governance. We believe that digital technology reduces costs associated with collecting customer information, internal processing, and experimentation. As a result, a flat and customer-centric management approach is the best suited for digital business. This demands a different style of management rather than traditional business. I would like to share our cases. Separating from its existing organizations, we have established an organization called Digital Cafes to plan and implement new customer services. From the management experience of this organization, we have come to realize that digital transformation requires a new style of management and talent. We believe that to guide digital transformation to success, leaders need to effectively link traditional business organization with agile organizations. In your book, there is a statement echoing this sentiment, suggesting that to succeed in digital transformation, one must manage innovations of varying degrees of uncertainty and varying distances from the core business. This resonated with us. The concept is often discussed as ambidextrous management, which addresses how to manage both low uncertainty core business and high uncertainty distant from one new businesses. As pointed out in your insight, what's crucial to how to manage new business that, while high in uncertainty, are not too distant from the core business, leveraging the strengths of the core business. The content is highly insightful, and we discussed this theme in New York. So I would appreciate your elaboration on this, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I absolutely agree. It is essential for established businesses to have what I would call flexibility in governance, to be able to have different management models and systems and approaches within the same organization, which you will use to pursue different opportunities or to manage different kinds of growth or innovation. What I found in my experience and in my research is that the ambidextrous model is an improvement on the traditional model, right? The traditional model is everything has to be run according to the, as you said, the waterfall, traditional hierarchical model of the old business. In the ambidextrous model, you say, well, what if we're doing something truly new? It is far from the core business, and it also has a lot of uncertainty. In those cases, it should be set up very differently. It should be independent unit, should have different rules, as you said, a flatter structure, more agile methodologies. But there is something very important that is missing here, that it sits in the middle, if you will, between those two extremes. So the model I introduce is called the 3 paths to growth. Path 1 is your traditional core business. So this is growth opportunities that are in your core business and are low uncertainty. And that's where you can use your traditional management approach. Path 3 is innovations that are far from the core business. They will have a lot of uncertainty, right? But the good thing is they can be separated. You can run them differently. And so you really can have a separate unit, a separate team that you put somewhere else, such as at Amazon when they started Amazon Web Services, right? So the company at that point was a pure retail business, a consumer-facing business. And someone had the idea, actually Benjamin Black and his boss, Chris Pinkham, had the idea, if we are rebuilding our IT architecture for ourselves, why don't we sell that as a service to enterprises, right? Go into enterprise computing, totally different business. So they literally sent them from Seattle, that's the headquarters, and they said, go to South Africa, right? About as far away as you could go, because Chris Pinkham was originally from South Africa. And they said, start the business there. So that's a path 3 management approach. And it was very successful. But many, many times, what I see today is companies in the digital era need to pursue growth opportunities that are in neither of these 2 paths. They are actually in path 2. Now, these are growth opportunities that are in your core business. You cannot separate them. You cannot send it to the other side of the world, right? But they are high in uncertainty. For example, you are an established bank and you are trying to reinvent your customer experience in order to reach a newer customer base that has never banked before, does everything on their phone. They don't want to come into a branch, right? Or you are Domino's Pizza, I mentioned before. You're a retail delivery company, and you say, you know what? We need to change the whole delivery experience, bring in more data. We should have AI driving the processes. We want to create a great, mobile ordering experience that is very fun and engaging for the customer. Now, these kinds of changes have a lot of uncertainty. What does the customer want? What's the right experience? Which technology should we use, right? Do we charge for this, or is it going to help us have more customer volume? And that's why we're going to make money, right? What's the business side? Lots of questions, but you cannot separate them from the core business, right? It's part of the core business. So you can't tell a team, oh, you go innovate here and tell us when you're done and bring it back. Companies try that, it always fails. So instead, we need to manage this middle path, what I call path 2. High uncertainty, but in the core business. Yeah. Each of these needs its own management model, right? And each of these can succeed if we do have a different management model. There's a few principles that really apply here that I'll additionally point out. One is pushing decision-making down. So as we look at digital era companies that are successful in managing new innovation and growth models, they always are trying to say every decision that we need to make, can it be made by someone lower in the organization? So it sort of reverses the instinct of a lot of traditional organizations Whenever a decision sounds important, I better send it to someone more senior than me, right? Instead, the senior person always is asking, do I really have to make this decision? Or is there someone closer to the customer, someone closer to the market, closer to the business who could actually make this decision better, right? The second principle that we have to think about is how do we empower our teams, right? And so you need, in each of these paths to growth, you need to design teams that are really capable of acting with more independence. These teams need to be smaller. They need to have multifunctional skills, not coming from a single silo. They need to be what I call single-threaded, right? That means everyone is focused on solving the same customer problem or same business problem. They need to be autonomous. And that means between milestones, right? There's regular oversight, but in between those check-in points, they really have a lot of decision rights about what they're going to do. And lastly, they have to be accountable, right? And this is how you can give them that freedom and autonomy, is because you agree in advance what is the outcome that they are achieving, how are you going to measure it, and then they know what they will be responsible to. And then the last principle here of governance, as we think about the three paths, is that it's really about not just, of course, one team, but how do we manage what I would call a portfolio of different growth ventures, right? Each team is trying a new idea, a new innovation, a new improvement to the business to see if it will create value. And so you need management oversight that will be green lighting, that says, yes, this is an idea worth pursuing, that give permission for a team to just get started. And then they have to fund them iteratively, right? Not an annual budget, much more frequent check-ins, maybe every 60 days, every 90 days, review your work, look at your metrics, decide, do we go further or do we stop, right? Do we shut this down and put these people on another project, or do we add more resources? Smart shutdown. So shutting down these ventures, shutting down these projects has to become something you do very easily, very quickly. A lot of companies struggle with that, but most of the ideas you pursue will not work. And so you will only slow yourself down if you do not become good at shutdowns. And then lastly, scaling, accelerating, adding resources and people to the things that do work, right? So you start with a portfolio that you greenlight and approve. You iteratively meet regularly and give them funding or not. You shut down most of them based on the data you see, and the few that really work best, then you're ready to move quickly and give them a lot of resources very quickly so that you can take advantage of your size as an established business and bring them to scale. Those are the most important ingredients I see in effective governance.
Thank you. It's very clear to me now. Thank you, Roger-san. For all businesses with high uncertainty and far from the core business, it might be best to leave them to venture companies and incorporate them into our new business when necessary. What's crucial is how to manage high uncertainty businesses that synergize with the core business. In this sense, the agile organization example I explained might be a discussion about the business in the past two domain, leveraging the strengths of the core business. Your book suggests the need to change evaluation metrics based on the type of innovation. I also deeply feel the necessity of data-driven management. I have seen many such cases. If you manage a new business without understanding its characteristics and just apply the management of existing core business, you might end up shifting growing new business. To solve this, I believe we need to set KPIs according to business characteristics and evaluate based on data, even for existing core business. With rapid environmental changes, there is an increasing need to manage based on data without being bound by past experiences. So I understand that you shared your thought, and I totally agree with you. So next, we will move on to discussing step 5, capabilities. I will introduce our framework related to this topic first. After that, I would like you to share the key takeaways from your book. First, let me introduce our framework related to capabilities. We believe that to achieve success in digital transformation, we need reinvention leaders who understand both business and technology, identify latent customer problems, transform solutions into value, and guide the business to success. Reinvention leaders are expected to possess cross capabilities in both the business and technology domains. In your book, when discussing the skills of personnel to evaluate in pursuing digital transformation, you highlight perspectives of technical skill and non-technical skills, with which I resonate. Additionally, to design and realize the future vision, we believe in the necessity of a hypothesis validation approach called the hypercycle, which consists of hypothesis, plan, experiment, and review. Furthermore, the hypercycle is reinforced and accelerated by learning from data. On this note, in your book, examples of general cultural changes in digital transformation are mentioned, such as moving from a planning is everything mindset to one of experimentation, and from expert-driven to data-driven. I found these points resonating. Can you please share your thought on the talent and organizational culture required when expanding digital transformation effort within an organization?
Absolutely. Well, in the last step of the roadmap, I talk about how companies need to grow the capabilities that they will really need for the long term to continue all of this change. And I see really three essential areas. One is, of course, digital technology, and you've talked about this earlier. And this encompasses many things, but it certainly requires very often a change in the architecture, technology architecture, from a more monolithic architecture to a modular architecture. And the reason is this allows the company, it's not just a better architecture, it is more flexible. So the IT systems themselves allow people to try things, to experiment, to test their hypotheses, to gather data quickly. So if you don't have the data and you don't have the IT architecture to actually run these experiments, it's just going to slow everyone down. It's going to hold them back. So you need the architecture, you need the data assets, and you need the IT governance around it to allow, to give your people the technology tools to work in this more agile, iterative, hypothesis-driven fashion. The second thing, though, even more important or more difficult, perhaps, is the talent, right? Yeah. So you need skills. You need people with very different backgrounds, right? Some companies I see, they want a digital transformation, and all they are talking about is, how do we hire people with the latest technical skills? Oh, we need AI people. We need machine learning people. Okay. Now, you probably do want some of those, but you also need other skills. You need the non-technical skills. As you said, you need leaders who combine the technology understanding with the business understanding. And I would argue you need people who have experience working not just inside your large business. They may have worked in a different industry, and therefore they will bring in a different perspective. Maybe they have worked some of their career in a small business. Maybe they've been an entrepreneur themselves, right? Bringing in these different backgrounds, people who are familiar with methodologies like agile software development or design thinking or lean startup. All of these things will be part of how you start to drive change. And this is both about hiring people, but also you may be acquiring smaller businesses if you're a large company. It's about training your people. It's about how do you retain the best digital talent. I do see many companies who will spend a lot of money to hire in really impressive, hire people from Apple and from Google and Amazon, and yet they don't stay, right? They stay for a year, 2 years, and they say, I really cannot do my best work in this company. And so they leave, right? Retaining talent is essential. You need to manage exits, who is leaving and when and why. All of this fits together. And of course, you need to partner with others. You will never have all the talent that you need inside your company. That would be unreasonable. So all of these parts of what I call the talent life cycle will help you to bring in the capabilities and the people and the skills you need. And the last, perhaps most important type of capability is culture. And as you said, I talk in the book about some of the culture shifts that we need to make in so many different companies. I see many companies that are still used to decisions being made by the most experienced, the most senior, the experts in the organization, rather than decisions being made based on data, and that anyone at any level of the organization can bring in data and make an argument and say, I know the CEO says we should do that, this will work, right? But I just did an experiment and we tried a version of this with actual customers, and let me show you the data, right? Here's what the customers did. Maybe we want to think about that decision again. Most companies, no one would ever dare to say that, right? So you need to have the culture where people are comfortable making decisions based on data. You need to have a culture that rather than everyone operating in their silo, right, just their part of the business, we are very comfortable collaborating with people across different divisions of the company and with different backgrounds. We need maybe a culture that is less cautious and more risk-taking, right? As you said, a culture that is, instead of always solving everything with planning and more planning and more planning, instead the instinct is, all right, we have an idea, we have an uncertainty, let's experiment, right? A culture that is less everything coming from the top down, always the senior leaders have to start every idea, and instead from the bottom up, right? People at each level of the organization have ideas, and we want to give them the tools to bring them up into the organization. And companies that are less focused on their products and the business as it's been, the history of the company, and instead are more focused and even obsessed with the customers. What are the customers' needs? How is the customer changing? How should we follow that and use that as our guide? So these kinds of cultural changes are absolutely critical. And I find that the companies that are most successful today are those where leaders understand the importance of culture, and they really take the time to understand the current culture in their organization, and also to say, okay, what are 1 or 2 or 3 things on a list like this that we should change? We do need to become more like this, more like that in our culture. And we are going to really embrace this and encourage it and make it easier and support people to behave in this way in our organization. That's how you really drive culture change.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to discuss with us today. We have gained a deeper understanding of the content of your book. Lastly, could you please share any advice or messages for Japanese leaders, especially those who are part of digital transformation specialized organizations? Will you share your message to Japanese leaders?
Absolutely. So for Japanese readers, I want to encourage you to see all of the change in the digital era as a very exciting opportunity. It does not matter what industry you are in. It doesn't matter what size of organization you are in. I have for years heard from some people who say, oh, if only I worked at a small company, if only I worked at a startup, then we could try new things. Old companies or large companies cannot really innovate, right? And what I have learned is that is not true. It actually is harder. The truth is that it is harder to change. It is harder to innovate. It is harder to transform as a company is bigger, more complex as an organization, and is longer established. But I have now seen, and I have taught, and I've worked directly alongside with executives in many industries at companies that are really driving change, innovating amazing new digital products and services and business models, moving more quickly than they ever thought they could. And these companies are of every type and every size and every culture. Companies in Asia, companies in Latin America, companies in Europe and Africa, and of course, North America, where I live. So this is a roadmap. These are the tools that we can learn from other successes in every part of the world, in your industry and other industries. And I encourage you to know that if you take these lessons to heart and you apply these ideas, these principles in your own fashion, right? You have to bring them to life, that you absolutely can drive change and great value creation in your business through real digital transformation.
Thank you. Thank you for good dialogue. And thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing in person in January. You will visit Japan.
Myself as well. I'm very much looking forward to being back in Japan in January and getting to see you and join you in person there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. A good dialogue. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.